Trenton 365 with Jacque Howard. Profiling the businesses, organizations, and people that make Trenton better.
Hello, friends, and welcome to another edition of the Trenton 365 Show. I'm your host, Jacque Howard. You're listening over WIMG, the three-time Stellar Awards winning station, small market here in Trenton, New Jersey, and you can also follow us over Facebook and Twitter as well, WIMG 1300. If you're watching, it's via WPHY Channel 25 and also the America One Network covering Mercer County, New Jersey through Verizon. You can also find out what I'm doing with Trenton 365 and my other programming by following me on Facebook, Trenton 365 Show, as well as Library Boxes of Trenton and Lifestyle by Amons Brindle. You can also send me an email, trenton365show@gmail.com. I love having conversations with people, especially over food and drinks, where we can work together to build a better community for everyone. In the studio with me is Joshua A. Campbell. Joshua A. Campbell is a new friend who we connected via social media not too long ago. He is a University of the Arts graduate, so there's this whole Philadelphia art scene vibe in between us. So I'm glad to have him in here, and the fact that he reached out to me, I really appreciate that as well. And we're going to be talking about his, not only his artistic talents, but who he is as a person, because as you know, that's one of the things that makes us awesome as human beings, the fact that we can get together and we can talk on a different level than some of the other species that God has created. So Josh is going to be talking about his background, but he's also going to be talking about his latest efforts as a playwright, working with students here in Trenton, New Jersey, talking about all different kinds of things, but mainly talking about where those students are right now in their lives, what have brought them to this state where they are, and what is it going to look like in the future, and then how we as the adults, air quotes, we can sort of formulate some sort of a plan to make things better for them and for the generations that come after them. So Josh, without any further ado, welcome to the Trenton 365 Show.
Thank you for having me. What an incredible introduction. Absolutely.
Oh, that's great, man. Yeah, so for those of you who obviously don't know, you're going to get to know a bit more about Josh, but we talked, probably a half an hour, 45 minutes for the first time on the phone, and it was just kind of like, just clicking.
Quick.
Everything was just vibing. Everything made sense. It was like, yeah, no problem. Let's just get a date, put it on the books, and let's just get things popping off. So I know we're going to talk a lot about what's happening here in Trenton, especially at the MLK school where you're actually doing some different things. But who are you as a person? And I'd like for you to be as vibrant as you'd like, because when we spoke on the phone, I even told you, you got me all fired up, man.
So I am from Baltimore, Maryland. I'm born and raised in Baltimore. I went to Baltimore School of the Arts, which has many famous alumni, including Tupac, Jada Pinkett Smith, Tracy Toms, Brescia Webb, who was on TV One. She did Love That Girl. So that's where I come from. I come from an arts background. Born to a family that's massive. My mom's side has 8. It's 8 of them. My dad's side is 3. Opposite ends of the spectrum, all extreme. My grandmothers, which is so important to the work that I do, my grandmothers, one was a pastor. So a lot of my work deals with the spirituality aspects and where we are spiritually as in terms of a community, in terms of a nation. And then my other grandmother, my father's mom, was a history teacher, which is so important because as I work on new plays in the school, I always like to look at history. How do we get to where we are? What led us? What do we need to learn, and what aren't we getting? And how does history come full circle? Because as we know, history is very cyclical. And that, for me, is interesting, fascinating, and intriguing. And then how we blend, which I learned at UArts, how we blend music and language and audience into an experience to get people to open up and begin to have a conversation that is provocative, authentic, and raw. So recently, as of last night, actually, I opened a brand new play, and we're looking to do it in Philadelphia in the summer, again, which was about the Baltimore uprisings and the Middle East humanitarian crisis. And it was really a play about looking at one character in particular in his psyche fracture as he's dealing with loss and grief of a relationship, but also looking at Black Lives Matters and Syrians who are either protesting, whether you're a Palestinian protester or a Syrian mother losing her son, but choosing to stay in a country that's bombed out, why that happens, and what are the connections that we can look at in the Middle East that we see in America, with the idea that we are all beyond despair, and what disparity looks like across regions, what disparity looks like across communities and nations, and what does it mean to be a community in crisis. All juicy political greatness that I love to play with, and I like to explore outside of my the world I live in a very interesting way. How do I capture a mother's grief, not having children and not being a woman? How do I capture Palestinian protesters' anger and fury? How do I capture numbness when I just watch my hometown be burned down for whatever reason? Like, how do I capture these feelings and channel it through people, places, and situations in a very interesting way? So at UArts, which was amazing school to go to, I learned a lot about race and politics, and which is a beautiful thing as we are watching all over what's happening, period, in the world, not just in the U.S., but period, is how we relate to race and politics in a very sexy way. The things that we like to talk about, the things we don't like to talk about, and then how that transformed into conversation. So I directed a play called Twilight Los Angeles, 1992, by Anna Devere Smith. And she said, race is not just black, it's not a black and white thing. And I was like, that is brilliant, because she had Latinos and Hispanic people in her play, and she had Korean American shop owners. So very much do the right thing. Mm-hmm. That piece was really about the Rodney King riot. So she referenced everything that Spike Lee had done by looking at these different voices and curating them into a play that she performed. It was 52 voices about the Rodney King trial, the Rodney King verdicts, and the riots. And so for me, I began to really look at what is the gray area that connects us. Is it religion? Is it education? Is it spirituality? Is it sexuality? Is it media? What connects us? And then what is the kaleidoscopic, I think that's the best way to put it, with the kaleidoscopic ripples, and how do we fracture things and how do things come back to us? Very interesting way. I just said a lot of different
but you know,
images.
And I think that's one of the things that we talked about when we first communicated on the phone, was that the way my brain processes, it's lots of different things, a lot of different moving parts. And I want to touch on the play Twilight L.A. and Rodney King. And when the Rodney King incident happened, I remember how upset I was. But I wasn't at a place spiritually where I knew how to process that. Like all the emotions, the anger, the fear, the disbelief of what I was actually seeing. And now that I'm in a totally different place spiritually, I look back on it and I realize that I have never really fully grieved that time period. And I know that there's other people who feel the way that I do because it's never been fully discussed publicly as a mass group of people. Now, I say that because I've been also struggling with the whole idea of why are we in a state of America, a culture, where we haven't evolved to not liking people who don't look like us or don't have the same background. And then it dawned on me in a conversation I was having was that we've never grieved slavery or the ills of it or the aftermath. And I'm not sure how we do it, but I know that me personally, I haven't fully grieved racist things that have happened to me in my lifetime. And I'm not even 50. So I can't imagine for the person who's 70, 80, or older, if they've never actually gone through that grieving process. I don't know how we do it, but But I do believe that there's a growing number of people who realize that we have to get to some sort of a point where we're having these conversations and we can actually grieve. And it's okay to grieve, just like when someone physically dies or when someone is physically hurt. We have to get to that point. So that's one of the things, and maybe you and I can discuss this at a later time. But thank you for bringing that up because it makes so much sense why I felt that way.
And I think also, too, what was interesting in my having her reaction for my plays, my friend Alexis saw it yesterday, and she said, I put a line in there that said, you know, black folk are always in a state of mourning. So for me, grief is interesting because grief, as we all know, works in really strange and interesting ways. It's irrational. It's just like anger, just like hurt and pain, and it gets embedded in the blood and in the soul of people. And I think when we reach a point of what I call wokeness, where we just open ourselves up and we're willing to dig deep, that's when we start to undo. We're so conditioned, I think, as a society not to be vulnerable. You know, to see Rodney King beaten. I remember when that show was tough because it took me 9 months to prep as a director to do that show. It was tough because I had to place myself in a specific place and time. I wasn't born yet. But then when I'm looking at Trayvon happen and say, well, before Trayvon, that was Rodney, there was a grief there. And then Rodney King died the summer going into rehearsals before I did it. And the loss, you know, we put certain people up to be martyrs on a pedestal, and then there's this first bout of anger. This was our first thing of, I think grief is always anger and resentment. And then we never quite get past that. And that's partly to do with, as I'm learning, working on this new play, partly do with spirituality and the idea that we always are looking for a place of refuge. And until we identify a real place of refuge, whether it's the church, because some people feel the church is not doing enough, some people feel like the church is doing enough, if it's schools or if it's whatever you choose a place of refuge to be, when you get into that place, you have to allow yourself to allow it to become home. And then that's when wokeness, I think, happens in a very interesting way.
Good. I'm glad you put it that way. And we're going to be talking about lots of different things tonight. I'm speaking with Joshua A. Campbell is the brand name. Joshua, share your contact information so people can find you on social media, etc.
Amazing. So my Facebook is Josh A. Campbell. For Instagram, I'm on Instagram a lot. It's going to be JC Playwright 92. And if you want to get in contact with me, and we talk more about the process of the new show that I'm developing, my email is joshacampbell227@gmail.com.
Awesome. Now, we're just about up on the first break, but I'd like for you to back up a little bit and talk a bit about your history. As a young person, did you always feel the arts calling you?
That's an interesting question. My mom would probably say yes. I would probably say no. I think I went through several iterations. I wanted to do CSI. You know, I wanted to be a forensic scientist. I wanted to design zoo habitats. There was a funny story of how I wanted to be Chim Chim from Speedy Racer that my mom likes to put out there. So Mowgli from the Jungle Book. There were a fascination with animals, peoples, and places. It wasn't until I got to elementary school and more so high school that I really was like, okay, I'll be an artist. That's what I want to do. So I'm trained as a tuba player, interestingly enough.
And musician,
awesome.
awesome.
Musician, so I'm a trained tuba player musician. And then I decided to go to theater in a very interesting way. So yeah, no, the answer is no. But my mom immersed me in arts and sports, and we realized me as a soccer player was not what I wanted to do.
All right, so, you know, and I'd like to stick with that because that also leads me to the next point that I like to ask my guests, especially ones who are younger than me. You had a lot of support as a young person. Your parents, your mother was encouraging you to go and to try these different things.
Yeah. It's very interesting, especially when I look at teaching now versus when I was in school. We had exposure to arts. Now, when we're looking at school systems and school districts, it's hard to fit in, especially Trenton. You know, they literally, if the school has 500 students, sometimes the teachers get to see the students once for an entire week. And then it's on a rotating schedule basis, so they don't get the full experience of what it is. Yeah,
I want to jump in there and cut you off. We're up on the first break, but when we come back, we're going to be talking about that as well. I'm speaking with Joshua A. Campbell, who's a playwright and artist and a musician that we've recently learned. And he's going to be with us for the whole hour. He's going to be talking about lots of different things, but mainly about him being immersed in the city of Trenton and sharing his gifts and talents as an artist and a playwright right here in Trenton, New Jersey. And you're listening to the Trenton 365 show over the 3-time Stellar Awards winning station WIMG 1300.
Woo! Big Mac, Mac Jr., Grand Mac 2. That's 3 Mac sizes made just for you. So no matter where you might be at, there's a Big Mac for that. Big Mac for that. Lunchtime already? Today's extraordinary. Juicy, cheesy, iconic Big Mac burger. Now in 3 sizes. Only at McDonald's for a limited time.
Greatness comes in all sizes. Right now, try the Mac Jr. for $2, the Big Mac for $4, or the Grand Mac for only $5. Prices and participation may vary.
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
Your morning routine has been so routine. Wake up and go to work. Well, change it up. Wake up and go to McDonald's for a delicious McCafe coffee. It's just $1. Wake up and win the day. Get any size coffee freshly brewed every 30 minutes for $1. Or delicious small mocha, latte, or hot chocolate for $2. Buy 5 McCafe beverages and get 1 free on our app. For a limited time, $1 any size hot coffee. Only valid for a la carte offers. McCafe Rewards is valid through 12/31/17 and participating U.S. McDonald's. Price and participation may vary.
Welcome back to the Trenton 365 show. I'm your host, Jacque Howard. You can find us on Twitter at Trenton365. In the studio with me is Joshua A. Campbell. And Joshua is a musician, artist, and a playwright. And we've been talking a bit about his history. Grew up in Baltimore and was educated at the University of Arts in Philadelphia. So shout out to the city of brotherly love, which is where he graduated from. And now he is here in Trenton. And he's in the capital city of New Jersey, sharing his gifts and talents as a playwright and as an artist. But he's got a very interesting dynamic because he's merging together the historical component of where the students are here in Trenton and also asking those hard questions about what does the future look like and how are we going to help shape that and impact that future. So we've just been talking a little bit about Josh's history, and we're going to be transitioning towards that. And in a little bit, we'll get into all the details about what's going on here in Trenton. Nice. So Josh, growing up in Baltimore, you had a mother who was encouraging you to get involved in sports and in art, etc. Just talk about the importance of having someone edifying you and encouraging and introducing you to something new.
Amazing. So my mom and my dad, I come from a very blue-collar family. So that was the first thing I had against me, was that I chose not to do work that required my hands physically. Come from a long line of construction workers. My grandfather, my family was in the military a lot. So my mom always dreamed bigger. And my dad always pushed me to be bigger. So I always acknowledge that I come from a household that had 2 parents there, which is important. But I can't knock anyone else who hasn't done that. So I want to put that out there first, so everyone can understand my background a little bit. So my mom was very active in the school. She knew all the teachers, all the contact information. We lived right across the street, so I could get lunch. She could just bring me ravioli for school, which was like a little I own. That was a little privilege there because some kids don't get that. So with the arts, I was always an active child, I will say. I had a sister. My sister was 10 years older, so we come from a musical family. My mom had us in the church singing, tried to get me into guitar, drums, so whatever she could just to figure out what sticked. that was really the thing, was figuring out what stick. And we found that writing is what stick, because I always was fascinated by telling stories. Whether I got up and just performed it, or whether I used music to do it, or whether I decided to join the photography club and take pictures and help build yearbooks. I was always interested in telling a story, and she realized that in telling a story was the most important thing that she could give me, that would teach me more about myself and the world around me, because I was able to connect with people. My personality has changed. A lot of it's still the same, but I always was interested in connection and learning. So many stories about growing up in church, Family and Friends Day. I was always in the kitchen with my mom and my aunt cooking and just hearing stories and then running back to tell my cousins. So it's just that she knew, and she just allowed me to be me. And in later conversations, she realized the importance of, yes, she had her dreams for me, but she realized that it was important to allow me to be myself, which was to be open and vulnerable, but understanding that I have to learn the boundaries of that. And I think that's so important. I think we sometimes forget that children, their imaginations are so key and critical, and they lose that when they go to school, because we carry so many different beasts and burdens when we walk into a classroom. You know, teaching is hard. Even when I go in as a guest artist to teach, I have to learn the students. I have to know the students and their personalities and who needs what, when, and how. That's the job of the teacher. And as I've learned on interviews about teaching in the school system, it is a calling. And so it's important for parents, especially when you're dealing with the arts, to understand you got to allow the child to figure out the calling. You got to allow them to figure it out. And you have to allow them to have the imagination. You can't be stop singing in the market. No, let them sing. I know that's not idealistic depending on where you are, but it's how they get it out. They have something to work through that they have got to get out. So let them get it out. And then scold them later, but let them get it out.
And I want to interject there and shout out to my daughter Maddie. She is underwater with Hamilton. She is all over the Hamilton craze, singing it nonstop, performing it, watching it on PBS and all those things. And Cakes, I'm sorry, because I've gotten to the point where it's enough. It's enough. I've heard enough. Please, can you stop?
I can sing it in my head.
Yes, but I am going to change my mentality with that and give her the space. If she wants to keep singing it, I'll just have to remove myself from that space. But I want to go back to what you were saying about your mother and your father as parents. Being a parent is a very difficult job. There's no manual, there's no books. You can most of the time what you've been taught isn't what's going to work for you with your children. So it really is a learning process every single day. And something that I've learned as a parent is that this is my child's life. Now, no matter what I want or what I believe is the right thing to do, I've got to take it through that filter of this is my child's life. I'm living my life. I have been through those stages. I can share my information, but it's not about me living vicariously through them. She's got to be able to do this on her own. So kudos to your parents, because it's obvious that your mom and your dad realized that as well and said, okay, he doesn't want to play soccer.
Yeah.
So.
And it actually, there's something to seeing it, because my father, I never felt he was really ever on board, because it's just how's my son going to take care of himself? It wasn't until he saw a play at Twilight. It was actually when he saw Twilight that it dawned on him what I really was doing. Because a lot of work as an artist is in solitary confinement. It's we have an idea, we could sit on it for 2, 3 years, 4 years, 20 years, and then we have to birth it in a way. So artists are parents before they become parents in a lot of different ways. And so it took my father seeing that production in college for him to really understand what I was doing, and that I have greatness. And I think when we're looking at parenting, and not even parenting but children, it's an exploration. We have to think of it as an exploration. I'm always in this teacher metaphor, but it's exploration because every day the world changes. Every day what we're exposed to, what we're not exposed to, what our children know, what our children don't know, what we know, what we don't know, it changes. So we always have to be in a constant state, and I think act of getting to know each other on a daily basis. And I think that starts the magic of unlocking what I call wokeness, is understanding that we're going to change and being okay to that. Like, we get burdened with everything, but it's always exploration. And we have to just look just a little bit deeper than what we see on the surface. There's a whole lot going on.
Excellent. Joshua Campbell, share your contact information, please.
Amazing. So you can find me on Instagram at JC Playwright, Playwright with WRIGHT, 92. Facebook is Josh A. Campbell. And my email for when we talk about more about the Trenton piece that I'm developing is going to be joshacampbell227@gmail.com.
Great. Yeah. Now let's transition and talk about you grew up in Baltimore, and then you go to the University of Arts in Philadelphia, which is an internationally famous school for art. Regardless of the medium or the genre, it is known as an educational facility for art. Just talk about your life experiences then.
Such a turbulent time, and a time of growing and understanding and transformation. That's the best way to describe it. The theater department, so just to put, UArts is an amazing institution. There's just it represents the real world, and it doesn't represent the real world. In terms of theater, I was in a department of 350, and there were 20 minorities amongst all the different disciplines in theater. So you're talking acting, a musical theater, directing, playwright, and production, which I was in, and then design tech. There were 20 of us across all 4 years. And I had this conversation last night. There was a bit of a numbness that happens, which is a part of a condition in college, because you're learning about yourself, you're learning about what is possible and what isn't possible. So it was a little terrible because I had to begin the process of learning about the real world in a very real way of that. You have to do your research. You have to go out, and if they aren't going to give it to you, you got to go take it for yourselves. So I spent, and not everyone's going to be me, and I own that. I spent time, I own it, I have to. I spent time in the library researching plays and understanding the white canon of theater and the black canon and the Hispanic canon. That way I can talk educatedly and people will not see my color for all of 2 seconds. With a group of 2 friends, we decided to start a theater company to say, hey, we're going to do minority work and allow us to celebrate our culture, celebrate our identity. I was in meetings talking about how we can better the community. You know, you can't have 30 students and then say we're going to choose one play and let everyone be a slave or a prostitute. That's not how things work. That's not our narrative, and that's not what we want to do. So do we go create the work, or do we go find the work to do it with? And that was my experience. It was a lot of that, and it was a lot of spiritual journey and understanding. The biggest thing about college is that you got to stay prayed up. Figure out your refuge, figure out what you need to do to stay sane, and you build that routine and you continue to do it, because that's what's going to get you through the times, because you carry a lot. You carry your dreams, your family's dreams. You carry everyone's hopes and dreams on you, and it can weigh you down. I was the first male in my family on my mom's side to graduate high school. The first male first male high school. I'm the first male artist. I'm the first one on both sides, really, to start a career in the arts. And that's exciting, and it's challenging, and it's burden. You know, my dad doesn't have a college degree, and my mom doesn't, so I'm the first to have one. So it's been a burden and a challenge, and you carry that with you. But when you get to the finish line, it's worth it.
Awesome. Joshua A. Campbell. We're up on another short break. You're listening and watching the Trenton 365 show. I encourage you to do an internet search for Joshua A. Campbell, Philadelphia, University Arts, Baltimore, Maryland. Any of his information will come up, and then you'll be more educated about my guest, who will be here for the next half hour or so. And we'll be talking about all things art-related, as well as his efforts here in the city of Trenton. We'll be back after a short break. You're listening and watching the Trenton 365 show.
Hey there, travelers. You going somewhere? Need a hotel? Then call Hotel Wiz anytime, day or night, for rates too low to publish. You can save up to 75% on over 500,000 hotels across the globe and get our best price guarantee with no booking or cancellation fees ever. We've got some of the lowest hotel prices you'll find in New York, Chicago, Las Vegas, San Francisco, Washington, D.C., and a lot more. Don't waste your time surfing for deals. Make a free call right now and find deals too low to publish. Save up to 75% right now with no cancellation fees. And to make it even easier on you, we're here 24/7 to help. So call right now. Bookmark us in your cell phone. Whatever you need to do, just pick up the phone and call this number for hotel deals that'll knock your socks off.
800-590-1163. 800-590-1163. 800-590-1163. 800-590-1163.
Are you nearing eligibility for Medicare benefits? Then you know now is an important time in your life. Medicare can be a complicated puzzle. The wrong choice can cost you money, and you may be locked into the plan until the annual enrollment period. And the right choice may save you money and maximize your Medicare benefits all year long. Let the Health Markets Insurance Agency help you. With one free phone call, a licensed insurance agent will help you find a Medicare plan that's right for your medical needs and budget. Call now to learn more. 800-576-4262. 800-576-4262. If you're now eligible for Medicare, call today to discuss your options. 800-576-4262. 800-576-4262. Health Markets Insurance Agency is a DBA or assumed name of InSphere Insurance Solutions Incorporated, which is an authorized insurance agency in all 50 states and the District of Columbia. Not all agents are licensed to sell all products. Service and product availability varies by state.
Have you ever needed help and not known where to find it? For more than a century, Catholic Charities Diocese of Trenton has been offering assistance to people of all faiths in central New Jersey. We envision a world where all people reach their full potential, achieve self-sufficiency, and live in a just, compassionate society. Our services include help with rent or utilities payments, financial counseling, family and individual counseling, substance abuse treatment, and domestic abuse prevention